What's up, guys? Welcome into another edition of Bogey Free. I'm your host, Matt Jones. You can find me on Twitter at MattJonesTFR. We're being brought to you tonight, of course, by FTN Bets and FTN Daily. And I'm joined, as I have been for every week this year, by Axis. You can find him on Twitter at Axis_DFS. What's going on, dude?
Hey, this is a great time of year for golf. And right in the middle of Riviera week, we get these hot, spicy rumors of the Saudi Super League. And what else can you want? Researching for bets, DFS, and then wondering if this could be the last couple weeks that I'll be playing some of these guys.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what shakes out with that from just a fan perspective, but also like, you know, is DraftKings going to start offering contests for that league? How are the books going to handle everything?
I can't even bet on the Asian Tour or the Korn Ferry Tour, so
that's a good point.
It'll be interesting. I don't know if you saw Daniel Rappaport's tweet, but might have been Kramer Hickok. I might have the wrong golfer. Basically said like 17 guys were signed up, and so I'm curious as to who, because like half of the top golfers in the world, so they are going to have nothing to do with it.
Right.
So obviously you can make your guesses about, Phil and Bryson and DJ and all the likely names, but I think that's the worst part about it as a golf fan. I don't care. Chase your money, whatever. Like I'm not going to pretend and sit here that I shop at all these places that whatever, but it just sucks as a fan because like you're going to have some of the top golfers in the world gone from regular events. And then it's like, all right, are the majors going to care? Like, are they going to let these guys play?
Right.
Because the PGA Tour seemed to think that they weren't going to, but I have a hard time believing they will tell some of the best golfers in the world not to show up to their event. I don't know. As a fan, I don't really love it. I get it. Do what you want. Chase your money. I'm sure I'll watch it. At least give it a chance, but 40-man, no cut fields, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer. And honestly, like you're saying with the, I don't know. I don't see how the top guys could just forego the majors, like regardless of not totally regardless of the money, but almost regardless of the money. Like there's a legacy thing, and there's some weight behind, being on the PGA Tour and playing in these majors. And if they can't play any of them,
I mean, maybe they think they can, right? The PGA Tour doesn't run them. So it's up to those sanctioning bodies where they want to put their foot down. Right. And if they want to back the PGA Tour, or if they just want to say, hey, look, we're the US Open. We want the best people who qualify, and if they are choosing to no longer play on the PGA Tour, we're not going to get in the middle of this fight, right? Like, I mean, they let guys from the European Tour play. If I know it's a little different, and most people really just have a problem with where the money's coming from, I think, more than the actual competition of another tour.
Right.
So, if the USGA, Augusta National, PGA, and the RNA don't care, then they can still go play only 15 events or so a year, whatever it was, make a boatload of money, whether they play poor or not, whether they play well, and still get into the majors. So it'll be interesting. I'm more just bummed, like, you're not going to have another Genesis Invitational with this field potentially. Like, it's just going to chop the quality of PGA events, obviously. So I'm selfish.
Yeah. Although I don't love these. I like watching these weeks. I don't love betting these weeks all the time, because I do feel like sometimes, everything in the simulator just kind of gets spread out among the top guys, and I have a hard time showing value on some of these stronger field events. Which is an up and down thing.
Yeah, it's because the market doesn't care, right? So like the market still shades all these guys because they don't want to have any of these bigger names get lower and lower down the board. Like you already saw a lot of golf Twitter that I follow, like a lot of names are like right away. It was like Morikawa 22, Rory 20, whatever he was. Like and it happens every time, right? Like there's a couple tournaments a year where when JT's not playing well, he'll slip into the 20s. And it's like an auto fire. So like you think like, okay, even if the book might truly in a deep field think that Rahm is the best, but he shouldn't be like 9-1. He should be like 12-1. They're not going to do that because it's going to push everybody else back. And then they're just going to have all this exposure to a Morikawa at 30-1, who very easily could win this. Like he's got the pedigree, right? So yeah, I think that's part of why it's always a struggle sometimes for me to find a ton of value in this too. Or you just pick the guy up top, the big name that you want to fade. And that's always fun for the heart.
Yeah, this is definitely, these types of events are definitely weeks where my sort of I find myself coordinating between my bets and my DFS exposures, where I'm like not even like necessarily, prioritizing one over the other, but just being like, all right, well, I'm firing on this guy that's 18-1 and he's going to be popular. Like I'm okay, like really just going like total fade in DFS because, it's a different game. Like I tweeted this a little bit before. I think that people have a hard time separating the two, and like more and more I'm finding myself just saying like I have to treat DFS like it's not a sport that I really know about, and like I don't think that it's terribly important to be like to have a lot of domain knowledge to be good at golf DFS, at any DFS sport, really. Like once you know what the game is, like you just have to play however the game is supposed to be played, and figure out where the discrepancies are between how everybody else is doing it and how you should do it. And I know that probably sounds like, well, yeah, obviously, but like people aren't good at it. Like I'm not good at it, and I'm very like hyper aware of it. So it's just interesting, like seeing like when I catch myself doing these like instinctual, intuitive things, and then I'm like, no, stupid. Like no, that's not that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing the complete opposite of that. Whether it's a game theory decision or like, the sim loves a guy, so I'm just like I go all in on him. I bet the outright in the top 10 and the top 20, and then I'm all in DFS, and then it's like, well, it's golf. Like shit happens,
right?
Like you can't always do that to yourself.
Especially weeks like this when you have the deep fields. So I guess a good example would be like an outright on Zalatoris, if you will, or anyone else for that matter, Rory, if you will. But then you look at maybe the pricing when that comes out, and it's like, well, I'm not going to play him at 28% owned. I'm just not going to do it. Especially a guy like maybe Will, who could very well put himself into a miscut. So I keep them pretty separate. I have a lot of exposure betting that I just don't touch in DFS and vice versa. And I just try to treat them different. I mean, there's enough overlap too. I think when you're modeling win it like that, obviously goes into how you're projecting the thing to play out. But the betting, I don't care who else is on so-and-so. I don't care if 30% of the world wants to bet, Will Zalatoris with me this week or whoever that golfer is. I just pick on Will because I think he's going to be pretty popular this week. And he also got bet on a lot by people. And a lot of people do that. Like, well, I bet these 5 guys. Now I got to use them in DFS. Well, no, there's two different, especially outrights. Like you bet a guy to win because you think he wins 8% of the time. Well, that leaves 92% of other outcomes. Some of those outcomes are missed cuts, which hurt you a lot more than, I don't know. There's some overlap, like you said. It's a gray area. It can be mentally challenging sometimes, but I do try to keep them completely separate. And I've tried to do a lot of my betting stuff first early on when the markets come out. I just get it done and over with, and then it's DFS time.
Yeah, the obviously the betting side, the outcomes are just straight binary. And there's, you have to take this range more into account in DFS, whereas like you make your number and that's the percentage of time that they're going to be in the top 5. It's either yes or no. And in DFS, like there's the price considerations, there's the rest of your roster to consider, there's how rostered the guy is in that particular contest, and then you put all of those things together, and there are times where you can make a good bet that is not a good DFS play, and vice versa. It carries through in other sports too. Like I think about this a lot in NFL also, and I know I'm going on a tangent here, but I think about this in NFL also. Like people will I'll be overweight on a guy in NFL and also bet an under on one of their props. Like both of those things can be true and good. Like it's just like it's hard to explain that, and it's hard to be like feel good when you're doing it, but it is a real thing. Like you have to take more of a range of outcomes approach and consider all these other factors in DFS that you just don't when you're betting. It's like, I'm taking the under on this running back because there's X percent of times where he gets hurt. There's X percent of times where they fall behind and they abandon the run, and all of those things matter. But then for DFS, like maybe there's X amount of times where he has 3 touchdowns and they run away with the game and he has 150 yards rushing. Like both of those things, depending on the line for the prop, can be correct.
Yeah, last week actually. So I put in a prize pick first of Bubba Watson over 4 birdies and Fitzpatrick over 4.5 birdies for the final round. I put that in early. I liked Bubba enough. I liked what he was doing. He takes advantage there often of the par 5s and 17. It's like, all right, just sneak one other one in there, what have you. It made sense to me with how I played out his round over and over. And then DraftKings put out Horschel versus Bubba, and they gave me a Horschel, I don't know, plus 100, plus 1. I don't remember what it was exactly. And it's like, crap. Like in my head, I'm saying, crap. But it's like, well, I honestly think Bubba's going to get 4 or 5 birdies, I guess, is what I'm projecting. It's like, but when I do the Sims, it's like Horschel beats him more often than that for me. Right. So I bet it. And it's like, all right. And it worked out, surprisingly enough. Horschel had a really good day. I think he went 4 or 5 under. Bubba came back near the end, but he had a lot of bogeys, so he had the 4 birdies and an eagle and what have you. But so it played out, right? But it can be mentally. It's like, well, why am I betting against a guy who I also just picked in another play to get 5 birdies? And it's like, well, I don't know. It's the long term thing. It's small percentages we're looking for. So I don't know. Everyone, you have to be comfortable with what you do, but sometimes it's an uncomfortable position that might be the right one.
Yeah. And I know that was a tangent that neither of us were planning on going on tonight, but it's a good thing because I do think that it's important. I think that, we will quickly talk about the course here. We'll give a couple of picks that we like, but that stuff is more important than just the 1 week, right? Like, would you rather have dinner or learn how to fish kind of deal? I think that it's important to.
I can give you picks, but they might lose too. So
no, only winners here, of course.
It was a good week last week, so let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, real quick, I think that this is one of the weeks that we don't have to spend a ton of time on the course because it's a very familiar course. Even if you don't realize that it, like when you flip on the coverage, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's Riviera. Par 71, obviously a little bit over 7,300 yards depending on how they set it up. Classic little POA action. What are we looking for here? We looking for is it a ball striker's paradise or?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, distance is king from what I see. I mean, and you can look, but like the green regulation percentage isn't as drastic from fairway to rough, which is one indicator of not needing to be as accurate. The rough in general is just not as penal relative to par for missing fairways. You can separate a little bit with distance here from what I found, like off the tee in general. So that's kind of where I lean. And then around the green, when I say around the green is important, I mentioned this in the Discord earlier. It doesn't mean that you should be weighting it the same as approach and off the tee. I think it's more important here than at other particular courses. It's proved it can be a little difficult with these green surfaces, and you're missing a lot of greens. So guys are hitting more chip shots, more scrambling. So, this isn't going to be a 75% green regulation round where a guy might be chipping it 2, 3, 4 times, whatever, if they're playing well. Like the green regulation percentage here is like 54, if I recall, on average. So guys are going to be scrambling more than usual. So it's still hard to gain a ton of strokes around the green without chipping in. So it's hard to overtake the importance of approach and off the tee and putting. But it would make me feel more warm and fuzzy knowing I'm backing guys who have shown to have a little touch around the greens.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's that balance of like, yeah, you want your guys to be good around the greens, but you kind of want them not to have to use that skill if at all possible also.
Right.
So
it's just this week they're going, like, even the best guys are going to have to. So
no, I know. I just in a usual week, even when
we don't care about scrambling at John Deere, because if you have to scramble a lot, you're already toasted.
You're gone. So see you later.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much the standard way of looking at Riviera. So we actually don't have any matchups this week. It's a little sad.
Didn't see anything that really stuck out.
Neither did I.
There's maybe a few that I could have been maybe tempted or talked myself into, and instead I actually talked myself out of. But I don't know. We'll see what the single rounds bring this week. But I don't really force anything. So if it's not there, it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we want, right? Like we don't have a quota here to fill. We're just when we see value, we will pass it along with to you guys. All right. So as far as finishing position bets go, I loaded up Seamus Power at plus 260 over on FanDuel for a top 20. Are you on Power at all this week? Or
not currently. I don't know if he's run his course or if it was just, everything that kind of fit together. But I was on him for the first couple tournaments of the year, and I haven't been the last few outings of his. So
yeah, he just obviously broke his streak. He's right on, sort of on the threshold for me. I made him a little bit better than plus 200. So that was good enough for me to hit this one. I think I sort of lean more towards, he's figuring it out and hit a little speed bump than I do like that his good stretch was a fluke. Probably just slightly lean that way, maybe like 60-40. But I think that, it's going to take a couple of pretty woeful performances for him to stop showing value for me. And I'm fine sort of dabbling in this, like this top 20 market in general on those guys. Like I'm not risking a ton. And I feel personally very comfortable in like the plus 250 to plus 400 range. Like that's where that's where like my model has always, or the sim has always shown the most value, like results wise. Like I've always the sim has always performed best with those guys when it thinks that, a guy in that range from a book is going to do well. Those are the ones that I kind of attack. Whereas like the really short ones, like shorter than 200, I historically haven't done very well on, even though I want to always fire on those guys when I do show any value at all. So I feel with all of those things put together, and it did hit my little threshold here. I'll be playing him for a top 20. You have a top 20 as well, a little bit further down the board there at FanDuel.
Yeah, it's now plus 260. But I happened to get Abe Answer at plus 460. And honestly, it was almost one of those lines where it's like, all right, if I bet this, is this going to get me looked at? Because it felt, I don't know, not like super wrong. It felt wrong in a sense that it didn't match his top 20 or his top 10 or his top 40, which I had run too. Because I all of a sudden he just had this one green bar on my run. And it was for top 20 only. I didn't show any value on him for top 40 or 5, which is odd. Normally, if I'm showing positional value on one, it may not be enough, but I'll normally show it on the other positions. I don't know if I missed where he opened and he was higher and someone hit him elsewhere. I don't know. Either way, he sat there for a while, even after I bet it. I know some of the Discord guys were able to hop on that. I don't particularly love Answer. Like I said, I really didn't make him value on any other wager. He's not a very long hitter. He's a much more accurate driver of the golf ball, which again, it doesn't hurt you, but it's not gaining you much at Riviera. He's good with his irons. He's not so good around the green. He's a solid putter. He's a good golfer. I like Answer. I bet him a lot last year. I use him often because of his consistent ball striking with the superior accuracy. That said, he hasn't been anything like super special of late. 43rd last week at another course where the accuracy could have come into play, and I think it did for him. He wasn't very good once he got off the tee was his issue. He was T8 over in Saudi Arabia, T40 American Express, and a cut in Hawaii. So it's not been the smoothest start for Answer. I really couldn't pass up the number, and that's where it goes to. It's like, I bet Answer on a top 20. So when you ask me though in the DFS Discord, like, oh, so you're going to play Answer? No, the answer is no, I'm not probably. But because it's different, right? I'm betting a probability because FanDuel hung a number that no one else put out. Could have been a bad one. It didn't seem, I don't know. We'll see what they do. But so yeah, that's what landed me on Answer at plus 460.
Yeah, my number is between his current line and that. So if I would have seen that, I would have bet it as well. And then you also have top 40 on Neiman here as well.
Yeah, so Neiman was the bigger one of the two anyway. That was the first bet I made when I ran. I don't know. Obviously, I run basically everything through the simulations after I make some course adjustments and whatnot. And then, it's really boring, obviously, if I just sat here and was like, yep, that's a 3%. That one's 4%. So obviously I go look. Neiman himself has been, so coming into this year. Now, he played well at the Farmers. First time we saw him, T6. Then he went to Saudi Arabia and finished T8. We don't have strokes gained for that event. But he ended the year last year with a couple miscuts. But overall, he played pretty well. So again, this goes back to a guy where I only have 8 rounds of data from him this year, 4 of its strokes gained. So I'm using priors, which for golf sometimes can span a decent amount of time anyway, even throughout the season. So really it goes back to what are you willing to weigh, his November, December? Do you think he's hung on to anything he was doing then? Did he lose it? A lot of people I know, sometimes they just decay it. Sometimes they don't pay attention to it. Sometimes it's full weight. So I guess that's up to you. I weigh a decent enough. He plays enough golf. I don't know. It all led to me making him roughly minus 140-ish for his T40 compared to the 100 plus 100 I got. I like Neiman quite a bit this week. I wish the results were better here, but again, I don't weigh course history wildly. He didn't hit his irons very well last time he was here. Cut before that, didn't putt well before that. So it's kind of been a mixed bag on Neiman and his results here. But overall, he's longer than the tour average off the tee. His irons are probably his best weapon. He's got a serviceable short game. It adds up to where he could be in for a solid week. So,
Yeah, I like both of those. Typically I'm on Answer and Neiman quite a bit. This week I didn't show anything on them. But I am back on Taylor Moore, so pray for me. I
saw your flow chart.
There's just, I don't understand it. Like there's just no getting away from him. Like, and I know that he didn't, I guess he played well last time, but at Pebble, but he didn't really play particularly well. And I think his power ranking for me is probably more realistic now. Like I knew that it was inflated or deflated, whatever. It was lower than it, a better number than it should have been to start the year. And I think it's probably dropped about like a quarter of a stroke per round, maybe. And I'm still showing a ton of value on him in like every possible market. Although it is interesting, he doesn't show up at all in my with value in outrights at all for me. I gotta pull up his his range of outcomes and I'll tweet it.
It's probably low volatility, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's
hurts the outrights, good for the positional consistency.
Yeah, there's just this like little hump, like there's just this little hump right around like probably 12th. And then it's just kind of flat out from there. Like his median finish position in the sim is like 48th. But he just has like a crap ton of top 20s.
So I kind of nuked his KFT number that I was making, just because, again, weighting is not an exact science with what his priors would be compared to a PGA Tour average. So I've been going a lot heavier, though, on his last 26 rounds I have of his from the PGA Tour. So
yeah,
I'm not showing a ton on him, but he did play. He played very well on the Korn Ferry Tour, obviously, last year, which is why, depending on how you weight things, like it goes back to a discussion we had of competition and level of, and how does that affect your play and all that fun stuff. So I'm definitely leaning heavier on 26 rounds than I normally would, but I'd prefer to lean heavier on what he's done on the PGA Tour.
Yeah. And I mean, his like the break even on his numbers right now is, like 13% or whatever. So like, it's not, if they were pricing him, the way that I am sort of viewing him, then of course I wouldn't be hitting this every week. But like, if I'm going to keep making him like plus 280, plus 300, and they're going to keep hanging plus 650s, I don't really have to be right that often. I've already been right once this season.
Right.
And he's only made like 3 or 4 starts. So it's kind of like, well, I'm playing with house money at that point. And if I keep showing the value, then, unless something egregious starts to happen either with his play or his odds, then of course I'll hop off. But I think that, I very rarely show huge value like this on these new guys. So I'm willing, new meaning, Korn Ferry guys, whatever. So I'm willing to buy into it, because realistically I should be showing value on all these other like guys that are being promoted, and I just am not. So I think that there's got to be something there, because they're all getting dinged as much as he is for the Korn Ferry rounds.
Yeah, he was very good.
Let's switch over quickly to some DFS chat, because we don't want to we don't want to ignore that. As far as my optimal percentages this week, Morikawa and JT are up at the top. That shouldn't be particularly surprising to anybody. Rahm actually fell a little bit. He was like lapping everybody every time that he was in the field so far. And I think just because of the strength of field this week, I think that flattened out a little bit. One guy that was interesting that popped up in the top 10 though was Joel Dahman. So what the hell, 6,800, and he showed up in over 22% of the optimal lineups from my simulator. I don't really know what to do with that information.
I can't say that Joel really popped for me this week, but perhaps you put into your model his partying on the 16th hole, and maybe flashing the crowd has excited you.
Strokes gained shirtless was a big factor in the model this
week.
Him
and Harry Higgs would be the guys. So for me, honestly, most of the guys that I projected to do well, like, they're just going to be the chalky guys. So this is where the getting over the mental hurdles and the game theory come in, right? Because it's like, all right, I like Cam Smith at 9,100. I'm curious to see where he comes in at, but it feels like he's going to be super popular.
Right.
Paul Casey at 7,600 is probably going to get some attention. Rory at 9,700 is probably going to get some attention. So I'm curious to see what happens with him and like guys like Sung Jae and Will. Like, I like Fitzpatrick a lot at 8,100. Yeah, I saw a comment that said, I don't know how many people. It seems like Fitzpatrick's been kind of popular, and he was like, I don't understand the love with a course that you need touch around the green. And I thought I was reading something wrong, or it couldn't have been about Fitzpatrick. He's not that bad around the green at all. Like, yeah, I know he's not. I don't know. I had to double take. Like, he's a great putter. I knew that, but I was like, am I really missing something around the green? No, he seems above average, serviceable. He's really good off the tee. I don't see why he couldn't play well here again. He has before. But again, like, my favorite guys are the ones who I feel like are going to be chalky, which kind of sucks. That doesn't always happen every week. So there's going to be a lot of decisions to be made, game theory decisions, because I could play all of those guys I named. I have no issue, right? It's a deep field. Neiman I didn't get to at 7,800, although I think Neiman will be popular, but Leishman's right there too at 7,900. So I feel like Leishman's going to pull a lot with how he's been playing. It's hard to say who else down there might. I don't in that general area. So those two will probably be pretty popular, which could be an issue.
It's the first run, obviously, but Kyle does have roster percentages up at the moment, and it's pretty flat in that range. Like, Fitzpatrick, Gooch, Henley, Leishman, and Neiman are all sort of like in between, like 11 and like 14, basically, with Sergio just being like the ultimate leverage at like 7%, right? And the like smack dab in the middle of those guys. And Answer too. Answer's down at 7.5.
We have to figure. So Scott is 8,200, I think.
Yep.
Let me sort by this correctly. So, like, you have to think him and Bubba 8,500 with how well he's been playing, led the field in approach last week. So that recency plus his course history here, I mean, you got to feel like Bubba's going to be a magnet. I already mentioned Zalatoris at 8,800. No one's going to play Spieth at 8,900, including me, most likely.
The funny thing, this doesn't happen very often. Spieth has the highest recent volatility and long-term volatility, by a significant margin. The way that I measure it, and he literally is like breaking both axes while when I have everybody in there, because he's just such an outlier.
It's wild. His up and down is, but it's what you're looking for, right? Like, you're telling me, all right, he might miss the cut, but he might also win, and he's going to be 5-6% owned.
Yeah.
Like, it's tempting. I don't know if I could do it in, like, maybe in some GPP stuff, multi-entry, mix it in. I don't know if I have the stones to fire him. But then it gets like, he's played well here, and then everyone gives it the Augusta National comp, where we know he plays well. Another course where His woeful driving at times, although it's been better, doesn't kill him because he can spray it and it'll be okay as long as you're, you say that, I say that loosely, like you spray it enough further, like it's trouble, obviously. But when I say spray it, I mean, he can be landing in the fairway, the rough, whatever, the rough more often. And it's okay, more okay at places like this. Like you can't quite go do that at Harbor Town or Honda, maybe. I don't know. It feels, you look at it and be like, oh, well, it's bombers, solid iron. Like, I don't know. It seems like he could play well here. He has played well here. Like he's got touch. I don't know, but at 8,900, I doubt anyone's going to play him. With Smith right there, with Will right there, Rory 97, like people are going to, that is a good salary spot to get jumped. Brooks, Spieth. I mean, maybe Zalatoris and Burns catch a little bit of that jump too, down to Sungjae and Bubba, because if you're using one of these 10K guys and a guy in the 9s, like you're most likely not going to be then in this Smith, Brooks, Spieth, Zalatoris range. And I feel like if you are, it could be a magnet to Cam Smith. So that's my Tuesday night hypothesis.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So basically, long story short, I will be playing a ton of Jordan Spieth this week, and it will be really, really fun. Be super, super fun. Just a guy that I never get right, so it'll be interesting to see. As the next 24, 36 hours progress, make sure that you check back with the projections, because Kyle is obviously updating them constantly and does a great job with them. So always worth looking.
Good showdown play.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's just always worth checking that out, because again, like you really shouldn't go through, like you shouldn't listen to this and expect it to fully carry all the way through to lock and make your lineups and then be like, oh, what the hell? What were they talking about? Like this stuff does evolve. Like more content comes out over the next 12 hours or so. And then, people are tweeting more and certain guys just pick up steam. Like if you look at the fan share tags and stuff like that, like you can see how, one guy talks about them and somebody talks about them talking about them. And it just like, it goes up exponentially.
It's very contest driven too, right? Normally though, for the most part, chalky golfers are chalky in most contests. It's just to what level. And normally as you increase your buy-in, the chalk almost gets heavier. So if you think Rory is going to be 18, 20% in the $5, he's probably going to be at least that in the 200 single entry or the $44. And as you get up and up even more, normally there's just gravitates to people taking less chances fading chalk, because most guys who are chalk are that way for a reason, right? Like everyone thinks they're a really good play, and the more money you're spending and inputting it seems, then the tighter it gets sometimes. And it's like, you know what, I'm just going to eat it at 44% in the 4,444 millionaire maker. I'm just going to eat this particular golfer at 40% because I cannot stand if I didn't play him.
Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely interesting to see how it goes contest to contest.
Yeah, for sure. It's always worth tracking and always worth thinking about when you're considering how your lineup's going to be built. All right. Well, I think that just about does it. Thanks again, as always, for hopping on. Again, make sure you're following Bryan over at Axis_DFS. And you could find myself at Matt Jones TFR, and you could find our work, whether it's full week, whether it's showdown content, over at FTN Daily and FTN Bets. Other than that, good luck in your contest this week, and we will talk soon. See ya.